all the answers to the questions about reality. I do not claim to know the ultimate truth about life. I seek that which has been made hidden as a part of a family of explorers of consciousness. I'm the void one.
Welcome to Lighting the Void.
Broadcasting live from Daytona Beach, Florida. This is Lighting the Void, and I'm your host, Joe Roop, and we are live on Fringe.fm, KTLK Digital Broadcasting. Thanks for listening, wherever you're listening from across the World Wide Web, or here locally in Daytona and Florida, or if you're listening on the app or the Fringe FM, TalkStream Live, tune in, wherever you're calling from and listening from. Thanks for listening to the show tonight. Speaking of calling from, our calling number is 1-800-588-0335, and we open the phone lines up. That's the number you want to call, and if you can't get through, then you just make sure that you keep trying. That's all you can do. You can join our chat room too at Gilded if you want to join our Gilded chats, fringe.fm/Gilded. So I want to jump in this because I'm pretty excited tonight. Our guest tonight is James Michael Lang, and we're going to be talking about somebody that, let's just say something that I'm very, very proud to partner with here on the station and be a part of, because my whole story, the show, this entire network, and everything that we've done and everything initiated essentially from having an out-of-body experience. All of this whole ride we've been on initiated from having an out-of-body experience while playing with newer technologies, which we all understand today is hemisync. And now the more that I got into this stuff and started understanding frequencies, it's not a new thing, but some of the old geniuses like Tesla and Einstein even said the future of medicine will be the medicine of frequencies. And now it's here. And it's not only just here, it's coming in big waves. And I told you guys a few weeks ago, weeks ago, that there's this whole, I guess you could say, revolution that's happening. And this revolution has a lot to do with what's going on in the physical world, artificial intelligence, all of the things that are happening with, I guess you could say, all the things that are happening with technology. But the metaphysical world, the spiritual world, is fighting back. That's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is to say that what we call metaphysical used to be in a very advanced technology that's becoming more aware of itself now. And so tonight we're going to be speaking with James Michael Lang. Now, he's the founder and owner of the Paradigm Creative Group, which he started his own marketing company to get behind companies like Centropix, companies like GAIA, things like that. So I'm really proud to have him on the show, and it's good to talk to you, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, of course, brother.
It's always fun. This is some exciting stuff. I first heard you guys on Dave's show when you were doing Surviving the System, and I was like, man, I got to get involved with this stuff because it seems this is just amazing, dude, for sure.
Yeah. You're turning on the human body to its core function and bringing it back to homeostasis with technology that's existed for over 100 years.
So explain a little bit, like, when people go on YouTube, what people need to understand when we talk about frequencies is, like, people go on YouTube and they put on their headphones and they listen to, frequencies. They're like, I guess this is frequencies, or this is like, I don't know.
Right.
But that's just like audio frequencies. That's stuff it's really cool, but it's stuff to get us at a certain level. But to understand that the whole world is running on these frequencies, and biology itself is a whole different kind of thing, right?
Yeah, we call those entrainment frequencies, right? So, like, entrainment is if I keep telling you over and over again that you're loved, you're going to have a certain reaction to that. And if you look at the frequencies that most people look for, it's like 512, or it's some kind of peaceful feeling, or it's some kind of relaxation from stress. And that entrainment of listening to the sound over and over again is kind of like you going to the gym. And slowly your body adopts to that signal, and it says, okay, I understand that signal now. I accept that signal. But entrainment frequencies, unfortunately, can be used to do harmful things. And I firmly believe that the 60 hertz television frequency was designed because it's the same frequency that you use in brainwashing.
Right. Yeah. So I heard you mention also that you understood hemisync too, right? Like you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that was something that kind of like affected you and changed your life. When I realized I'm the biggest skeptic in the world with all this stuff, man, that's why I started this whole void walking thing. Like, I want to know what the truth is. I'm not just going to jump on any ride. And so I went down the Robert Monroe ride, and I was like, this sounds like it could be real. And I got obsessed about it, bro. And I got out of body. Like, I literally peeled myself out of body and looked at myself and was like, what in the world? Like, this is awesome. That's what opened my mind up to this whole idea of frequency. And then understanding it now is like everything. Like, it's literally, and I'm not just saying that, like, all of physical life is frequency, you know?
Yeah. You were basically riding. So what was cool about Monroe was he spent a huge career in the radio industry, and he realized that he had this powerful kind of hypnotic voice. And he started getting into binaural sound entanglement in the brain, right? What happens if you run two frequencies in an oscillative current? You can actually massage the brain, but if you massage the brain, you can actually destimulate the brain. If you can destimulate the brain, you could actually induce hypnosis. Then he realized, if I actually do a hypnotic kind of medical training with someone on a base level, and then I run these frequencies, I can take them into higher states of consciousness. So he just completely shifted his whole life, built this whole facility. His whole family is a part of this thing. And for me too, that was my gateway. It's actually called the Gateway too. Yeah. The very first ones are called Gateway 1 through, I think, 7 or something. Yeah, I
had Thomas Campbell on here. I tried to get as many people as I could on this show that worked with him originally, right, when they made this thing, you know. And so when I heard you talking to David on Surviving the System, I was like, okay, well, I've heard about like EMF protection and stuff like that before. Let me go look into this, right? And then I looked into it, and then I looked into what, Kafka's what he was doing with his whole patent, and then he advanced it even more. And then I saw the studies, literally watching people's, these molecules regenerate and grow like during these studies. I'm like, this is real. This is not
next
BS,
level. If you look at Kafka too, you look at his history. He's the guy that NASA brought to the table and said, "Hey, we got this kind of baseline square wave. How do we actually make it induce a better kind of biological reaction?" And so he kept working on it, and that eventually that signal became something that Beamer developed and took that to an amazing level. I mean, you go look at the Beamer, they can actually induce vasomotion. The frequency of the little kind of these little venules, they open and close like mechanical valves. They figured out that frequency is a certain precise pulse, and they made them open and close. It goes boop, boop, and opens and closes them. I'm like, oh my God, with that, they change blood flow forever. So, Kafka worked on that for a long time. And then eventually, he came on board with Centropix, who I'm working with now. And he's like, look, I can go beyond that. I can go all the way down into the molecular structure. And I was like, dude, what are you talking about? Molecular structure. I was like, I understand biology. He's like, no. All biology is these kind of molecular reactions that synthesize this chemical reaction, right? So you have like this base kind of data. We were talking about viruses earlier. Sure. This actual blueprint. And if you can induce a blueprint to create a chemical reaction, well, then you kind of are working with the baseline code that actually starts all the biological processes. And he's like, look, if we run the device like this on these frequencies, we could actually affect all the biology in the body in these kind of rapid advancement frequencies, because all we're doing is we're speeding up the natural process of the body. We're not changing anything. And that was the coolest thing to be a part of from day one. And Oh man. And I'm laying on the mat right now. It's pretty phenomenal.
Man, I'm stoked about this because here's the thing. Like, we're not talking about a button that you push and
No.
it like cures your. But here's the thing that we're talking about. Like when doctors go to school, they learn about biology, they learn about molecules, and they're like, okay, to keep all this stuff firing on all cylinders, we got to get you to eat right, we got to get you to exercise, we got to get you to sleep right, we got to get your stress levels down.
Yep.
And the whole time they're thinking organs, biology, all this stuff.
Right.
Like they're thinking all this stuff. But with this, like, if it's going to be another thing where it's like, if you got one of these, I'm telling you guys, this is going to happen so fast because it's going to be like, if you got one of these, you need to lay on one of these things, like right now, especially if you're, got aging, Alzheimer's, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. So think of the modern medical system as a reactionary based system. And so you go to the doctor when you've already got something going on, right? And all these things are happening in your body. You've got all these symptoms, and they go, hey, let's go treat those symptoms. And they have a pill, and they have a procedure, and they have a follow-up, and they have all these things. Everything is based on the reaction of whatever's happening in your body, right? So you're trying to stop these reactions from happening. But if you actually look at the baseline biology of when you were born, let's say you were born a normal, healthy human baby, right? Got all these great stem cells regenerating all the time, rapid cellular growth, rapid actual structural growth of bones, and your brain matter is growing and your skin is changing. And you're literally going from this little thing into this huge thing, right? And you look at that homeostasis and you go, if I could just stay in that homeostasis where my body was the doctor, my body was the one pushing that system forward, you would never have all these reactionary things to fix and try and create some kind of environment to fix them, right? You would say, okay, well, the body's going to do that. The body will do that. Well, as you get older, the body stops listening. And when you look at the cell, the actual are you familiar with how telomerase work?
Not really, but you can enlighten me.
Okay, so check. This is the coolest thing ever. And everyone, you go buy these vitamins if you have the money. Telomerase are the ends of the DNA strands. They literally shrink. You are aging because your telomerase are shrinking. Theoretically, if you can put the body into a good state of homeostasis and stop the cellular fluid, the fluid that's surrounding the cell, from getting let's call it out of voltage or out of phase, and then you're able to stop the telomerase from shrinking, you wouldn't age.
Wow.
And that's
really,
you literally would not age. No, you if you take the cell out and you put it in the perfect fluid, you see my bunny hopping around. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, I saw that. I was going to say something like, dude, is that a bunny?
We have a wild bunny. It just runs around. But so you take the cell out of the current body, the current body's biosphere of whatever homeostasis you're in, right? And you put that cell in the fluid. If the fluid is correctly balanced, the cell will not change. It won't rot. It won't decay. Nothing. So the fluid that you're in, this is why fluid dynamics is a really good thing to study as well. And you get into interstitial fluids. If you can actually kind of structure the interstitial fluids so they're not actually in a rate of decay, aka a voltage state or a polarity state or a phase shift state where that's where cancer grows, then the cells will all be floating around this really happy pool of like all kinds of different chemical compounds, and they'll do their job. Well, these kinds of devices, what they do is they reprogram that, let's call it molecular information that, just like your Wi-Fi router, when it stops working, you go,
Sure.
Hey, I have no internet, right? But when it's going slower, you realize it's going slower. You don't realize your body's going slower. You just go, wow, I feel fatigued. Well, guess what, man? You just aged 4 days for that one. If I actually made you a chart and said, hey, dude, you just aged 3 days doing that one thing you just did, would you keep doing it?
No way, bro. Like, I'd be like, no way. Like, you're killing me. Like, you're killing me. Yeah, for real, right? Like, you're killing me.
You slowly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Finish that.
I was going to say, I'm going to end it here. All that slow death and that slow decay is accepted. It's accepted in the modern medical paradigm. It's accepted in our behaviors by, drinking and doing drugs. It's accepted by stress, which I think is the most important thing. And that just speeds up the rate of decay. So if you're doing all that and you're living that normal go fast lifestyle, you need something that basically brings back that core energy back into the cell and says, hey, you're at baseline, you're at homeostasis, do your job, recover. And if you can get it there, that's where these devices basically speed up that recovery phase, which is so critical.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, so this is a pretty trippy thing, because when I started looking into what you were talking about, you start seeing like the body is kind of like a network. It is. It's a massively quantified Wi-Fi network in a sense, that everything is running off frequencies of all kinds of different types. And I'm thinking, whoa, like this is because I studied a little bit about biogeometry, and biogeometry is basically kind of like feng shui, where you move certain things around in your home to level out certain frequencies and things. And the more I look into this, man, the more I see that this technology is, I think it was buried in ancient history, but that's another conversation for sure. But like, let's look at what you're talking about now versus like e-smog, right? Because e-smog is a real thing. There's studies on this. This isn't just some wackadoo thing that they used to get on the mainstream news and tell us, no, they're all crazy, that this stuff isn't affecting us, but it absolutely is affecting us. It can be weighed and it can be measured. It's affecting us big time.
Oh yeah, tremendously. And I'll give you an analogy for e-smog. If you were in China right now and you and I were sitting here doing this, the likelihood of both of us wearing masks when we left our apartment is extremely high, because you could physically smell, you can physically taste, you can't breathe, the oxygen level is lower, and you're actually able to sense it, right? And so in China, it was kind of accepted that people wore these masks, and we thought as Americans, oh, that's crazy. Well, it's only because they could see it and sense it and feel it. Now, if you were to do the same approach, and I could actually give you a sensory response to e-smog, the mask you'd be wearing would be a freaking gas mask, and you'd be breathing through a filtered particulate system, and you'd be wanting me to give you the best possible oxygen, and I'd be spending a fortune to keep that oxygen flowing to my cells, because I would know that the toxification of the radionic frequencies is creating such a fast rate of decay in the cell that we brush it off like it's nothing. But I can tell you right now, we will not live as long as our ancestors unless we do something about this, because it's going to keep going at a rate that we can't slow down. Now, it's hundreds of trillions of times more than it ever was.
I looked at the number, the radiation exposure is one quintillion times more than it used to be 10 years ago. And this is according to Ollie Johansson. And this is the PhD, a neuroscientist from Karolinska Institute in Sweden. He's measured this and said, 10 years ago, we were 1 quillion times less radioactive than we are now as human beings. It ain't getting, here's the thing too, like it ain't getting better out there.
No.
So
there's every single device, like I'm sitting with a computer and I've got all these machines and everything's connected to Wi-Fi, every light bulb in my house. And it's really not about what are you going to do about that part of the technological evolution of humans. Okay. And I think people that walk around and say, I've got to live where there's no Wi-Fi and I have to have no cell phone. And some of our users are like that. And I respect that. And I actually really enjoy being around those people, because when you're in their home, it's very nice and peaceful.
Yeah.
You don't feel as stressed. But what's crazy is I would rather have a solution that mitigates that around my body and around my home than to try and stop those things from happening. Because I do like the convenience of modern society. I think it's, what are you going to do about that?
See, that's another. I'm glad you said that, because a lot of people are like, oh, artificial, and look, I see all the evil about it, right? Yeah, but I love technology, but this is what I think is going to balance it out, right? The metaphysical realm, and we only call this realm metaphysical because we can't see it, right? That's it. We can't see it. It's not physically tangible. But if you've ever had an out-of-body experience, I'm not talking about just a dream, but an out-of-body experience, if you've ever had a conscious experience, if you've done any of those water or rice experiments, like, it's real. And now science is coming around. There's scientists that are more and more scientists are opening up to it. And thank God we got people like Kafka that started doing this stuff back in the 90s. And he's like, no, like I'm showing you that this is really tangible. There's 700 studies on this stuff, I think, right? Isn't there? That show all the effects of this.
The last 2 years of my life have been inundated around, scientific studies and validation of what's actually happening in the cell. And I'll tell you what's really sad this is the saddest thing, Joe. I can't show you what's really happening because it's not legally allowed to show proof of things that are hurting the human body. And it's the craziest thing. And it blows my mind. But what I can tell you is that the static charge, just like when you rub a balloon over your head, builds up in the body. And that static charge, it confuses all the cells. So it's like your cell is floating along and it's doing its job. And all of a sudden, all this information comes. Well, it's looking for information, right? So you've got a blueprint of sound waves, and the body is communicating all these tremendously precise and balanced sound frequencies. And if you throw something out of phase because there's too much of one other frequency, well, slowly that function just kind of stops working the right way. And unfortunately, I think that's tremendously devastating to the human biome, and we don't fully understand it yet. We've had maybe 5 years of this level of radiation, but before that, they were studying 3G, and 3G was causing cancer within a couple hours in lab rats. They were seeing cancer cells within hours. Yeah. So
I think I've been around people. I know that happens to them too. So there's like there's a name for it. There's certain people
sensitive.
Yeah, they're more sensitive to it. And like my girl, I know is because when we get around rural areas, she'll just get a bout of crazy feelings or dizziness or something, and you can't ever figure out what it is, right? But this stuff's known to cause like headaches, even breaks in the blood-brain barrier, reduced melatonin. You can't sleep, more inflammation, all kinds of crazy stuff, man. And I'm telling you guys, they're not going to slow down. I want to talk to you about this too when we come back after the break. Is the whole Kurzweil theory, and I think how it's not just going to be like, I don't want people to look at this like, in my opinion, I don't want people to look at this as like, I need to get this so I can have luxury health. I'm telling you guys right now, like, this is how we're going to have to battle our health in a real way to begin with, right? Before we even start looking at more advanced things, then, because this is, I thank God this even showed up. If you guys want to know what I'm talking about, we're talking about Centropix. If you want to check it out, you can go check out all the products. We'll get into that too. That's at fringe.fm/bioenergy. That'll take you straight to the store so you can look at these things. We'll kind of go over each one and talk about that too. And I'm here with James Michael Lang. And I just got to say, man, thanks for coming on the show. I really love what you guys are doing. There's no way to talk about all this stuff like in one show. There's no way, right? Like, you just can't. Yeah. There's no way. You can't do it. But we'll be right back, guys. Stay with us.
You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
All right, welcome back to Lighting the Void Radio. If you're listening on the Fringe FM, you can listen on the website. You can listen on the app. You can listen. There's even a new call to listen line. That new number is 641-741-2427. So even if you don't have the internet, you can listen on your speakerphone. There's so many ways you can listen to this broadcast, and we archive all these broadcasts on the Lighting the Void website. So here's the thing. We're talking serious work tonight. I'm here with James Michael Lang. We're talking about Centropix. If you want to check out the link, go to fringe.fm/bioenergy and look at these products. They got the cloud, the bubble, and the cocoon. And this is some pretty impressive stuff, man. But like I said before we went to the break, James, I think it's vital that everybody that cares about their health get involved with this, because if you the only way that you're not going to know that the e-smog is real and that it's really starting to affect our lives is if you just completely bury your head in the sand and just not do any research, because it's way too obvious at this point, man.
Yeah, and again, if you guys were listening earlier, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to go out there and shoot down the 5G towers and yell at your neighbors for having too much Wi-Fi and wear a foil hat on your head? That's not reality, dude. I think the power of all this stuff working is like, look what we're doing now. You're reaching people, and we're having this interactive kind of experience that didn't exist. I mean, God, look, even when I went to school.
Yeah.
So it's a catch, and I think the catch is spreading consciousness faster. But at the same time, we just need to be educated and just be smart about it.
Right. Well, we do need to be educated and smart about it. And when these things I'm asking you about, like, cause you know way more, I've just started like a deeper research on this, but molecular activation, right? Like re-energizing, reactivating the molecules in your body. I grew up with my dad, and he had two things he liked to do, right? Get rich quick schemes. Okay. And then, the new health thing that came out. And so I grew up a skeptic of all of these things because he was on a mailing list, and we're talking about targeted mailing list. He got so much stuff from these people, right?
Yeah, and he had a good intention, right?
Yeah,
he wanted
really
to combine,
good intention. Yeah,
like his love and passion for obviously biology, health, and longevity. With I need to make some money and take care of my family. And you know what? For me, I think to a certain extent, I also would have rejected those things.
Sure.
But I grew up in sales, right? My parents were Paul Mitchell people. We had big distributor. And I was around people all the time pitching me. And I was like, dude, just tell me the real. And it wasn't until I finally shifted my whole consciousness and my life into the human biology and understanding that biotech was like the future. And I went, okay, I'm going to stay here because now there's a validity to what I'm doing. There's a validity to what I'm seeing.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's some kind of traction,
Well, don't you think that sometimes that maybe some of us have experiences like that to wake us up so that we can help others? Like Absolutely. For me, the whole out of body experience thing it's like, I would get on here so many nights. I'm like, I don't know about ghosts. I don't know about aliens. I don't know about Bigfoot. I don't know about all this stuff. What I do know is that the OBE experience is real and the hemisync thing is real. Right. And that's what I started like getting into after that, so.
Yeah. You start astral projecting your concept and let's call it baseline of what is comprehensible in reality shifts because you're having experiences that are non-quantifiable by normal states of consciousness, but are super conscious. And then your baseline for what is actual consciousness goes, well, I'm just in like a waking state right now and I'm doing my thing, but I can go to that other place. And, I was a big proponent of psilocybin and psychedelics. And I believe that those are doorways, right? And you can fly to all these doorways, but if you actually understand the frequency of the doorway, you could just go there. And I think that's what Monroe was trying to teach people was if he can then train you which is why you're listening to Hemisync, he's in training you to that higher frequency. And as you got higher and higher in the gateway experience, and I encourage everyone that's listening to go listen to this stuff. Man. Yeah. It's phenomenal. And it just changed my whole life.
Well, it inspired me, bro, because I'm working on my own audio stuff with this, right? Like,
awesome.
Because I know how to do it now. I learned the technology, but I want to do my own thing with it. But he's the person that changed my life, consciously and everything. So now that I see this, I'm a real, like, in the sky heady dude. To get me to go outside and run every day, and everybody's like exercise, body stuff. I'm like, yeah, well, I'm good. But now I'm like trying to change that because I'm at like this midlife crisis thing, and I see the potential of this. Like, I'm going to go out on a limb here, but I think if you have a good amount of health, let's just say you're just a medium health person, middle-aged person, wherever you're at, actually. This stuff is going to help you in ways that I don't believe, based on just the little research that I've done, I don't believe that modern medicine can even touch, right? Like they don't have a way to do it.
You talk about what is, okay, so there's a great person to start with. And this is the person that I actually started with after I got really into biotech, and it was Dr. Tennant. Go look at Dr. Tennant. Healing is voltage, right? And he basically deduces that the body is a giant storage machine, right? And it makes total sense. Why do we eat food? Well, we're trying to store energy. Okay, so if you look at your body as basically a capacitor, and a capacitor is designed to take an input, store it, utilize it, and create some kind of output function. Well, then if you're sick, what has actually happened? Well, you had this core capacitor that had a premium operating voltage, and then you lowered that premium operating voltage. So now there's baseline biology that's been compromised. The modern medical system doesn't look at you that way. It says, you have this wrong, we're going to do that. Well, guess what? Every time you do that, you have what? A reaction. And you have some kind of thing that's that is created out of the natural byproduct that you are trying to fix a thing that your body isn't able to actually fix and regenerate. So that's where there's a problem that you're never going to be able to solve. I don't care what pills you're on. I don't care what the most advanced form of chemo research, blah, blah, blah. You're never going to be able to get to homeostasis. So things that interest me are only things that either one, induce a higher state of premium operating voltage, or two, induce the core homeostatic function of the basic biology of the cell. That's it. There's nothing else for me.
Well, I mean, that's where it all starts, that from the DNA, right? From the DNA out to the cells and look, this couldn't come at a perfect time if you ask me, because I don't want to go into the weeds with the whole COVID and vaccine stuff and the mRNA, but this is directly connected. Okay. Yep. And I have this theory that anytime, let's just call it the adversary, because people like to look at an opponent, right? Comes out with a new tech or something to take away life, to get us fixated on things I don't think that are actually as technologically advanced as this. The metaphysical world or the spiritual world comes in through people like Monroe, Kafka, other people like that, and says, no, we're going to show them the natural. Because this, honestly, this isn't like advanced binary code, man. This is natural technology, just utilized to the best extent that you could utilize it, I think, Yeah.
And all these devices are doing, and I can tell you that if you really want to dive into, radionics and sound wave therapies and basically the beginnings of PMF, go study Royal Rife and go study what Rife machines did. And they were doing things in the late 1800s, early 1900s that would be considered breakthrough in today's standards. And guess why they're not doing them? The same reason why Tesla's inventions for half the stuff that's existing now were done 100 plus years ago. Tesla had a machine that attached to your home that would self-generate its own energy system. It was a free energy machine. And of course that was destroyed because it's more advantageous for you to go dig copper out of the and create copper conduits to harness the power of electricity, which can actually be harnessed in the air. And I think, if you really start digging into this paradigm shifting technology, whatever it is, whether it's biological function, whether it's human, function with our needs and desires to have safety, security, and whatever, they've all been stifled because there's been a control mechanism placed on it. The control mechanism placed on health is basically, the FDA. The control mechanism placed on our wallets is basically the federal banking system. The control mechanism placed on our entire energy system is basically governed by a couple of trillionaire families. And then you go down the rabbit hole to the food supply, you go down everything. I mean, there's a system on top of every single system. And if you're not smart, you walk into the trap of every single one. So the education is the number one thing, nothing else.
Yeah. So. Yeah, for sure. So, and if you can't wrap your head around that, let me ask yourself this, right? Like, how well do you sleep? What's your stress level like, right? How happy are you? Do you feel like you're older than you actually are in your body, right? Do you feel, those are the kind of things that you shouldn't be ignoring. And when I look at the case studies of people that are using this stuff, you can almost see the unbelief in their eyes. Like they're still trying to believe it as they're talking about it. Right. And I'm watching the videos and they're putting the actual like scientific studies by their faces and showing them, here's the results. And you could still see in their eyes, like they're not grasping how frequencies could actually do this to them, still.
What's crazy is, if we were able to actually use dark field microscopy, I could show a rate of change so rapid and so advanced that you would be, able to sell these things by the millions. The problem is then I'm showing you a rate of change that's something directly affected and I'm giving you a treatment. But, you start to pull back and say, okay, if I'm going to play by the rules that this system has set in front of me, I just need to raise the consciousness and the possibility and the acceptance level of the people so that they will believe that their bodies can actually take care of everything they need. There is no magic pill. This device is not magical. This device just tells your body what it needs to do. That device over there just blocks the frequencies in an anti-phase wave so that they don't come in contact with your body. These are not magic things. This is just basic understanding of human biology, basic understanding of how sound waves interact, and a basic higher focus for what the end goal should be. You should live in a clean environment, and your body should be able to recharge, and your cells should be able to get the information they need. That's all we kind of push.
Well, I can tell you, man, from living in a studio apartment with all this stuff going all the time, right here by the beach too in Daytona, they got 5G towers everywhere. Sometimes I'll literally lay in that bed and I can feel myself humming, dude. Like I can just feel it humming, and I'm like, what is it going to take for me to go to sleep? I'm not playing. Like I'll go get some wine or whatever I got to do to try to pass out, and I'm like, this isn't cool, man. So I got to shut everything off sometimes to just get the humming to go away, if that makes sense.
And
you know,
that's where, I think the cool thing, we could talk about Cocoon now, because when you look at that world that you're in, right? You're in a digital environment. We got computers flying. I got a huge monster Mac system over here. All that stuff is on all the time because that's how I make my money. And can I shut that off? Well, then I shut off my entire business. So the answer is I have to be able to coexist with that device or that technology or that Wi-Fi router, or, I like having all this stuff. So when you put that cocoon into an environment, you'll see that the environment will respond faster than you'll notice. And the environment I use as a test is plants. And when you see plants in a rate of decay, and you can look this with smart meters, go Google the smart meters next to plants. Holy crap, the whole plant or the whole tree will completely die. And that smart meter is just like this little tiny radio device that has probably a 20th the power of your cell phone. But because it's running 24/7 and you have this environmentally growing organism, you can see it. You can see the rate of change instantly. And I think you can see it in your house. Like you should go get some plants, and you'll see, like, you put those plants next to your computers, they won't grow. They will not grow nearly as fast. They won't, if they have, any kind of thing to germinate, they're not going to do it. The fruits won't grow nearly as big. And you're seeing that right now. You see GMO is an attempt to bifurcate the causality of what's happening to the natural food system, saying, hey, this environment is not systemic to my normal biology. And if you want to go back even further, you start researching in the Bible, which took me a long time to get to that level of consciousness, and say, hey, I was a scientist who now accepts what I read in this story as real. These giant plants, these giant systems, and these people who lived hundreds and hundreds of years. And then you start to get to a higher state of consciousness and go, oh my God, the whole system was clean. The whole system was pure. The cell was in its perfect homeostatic place and nothing was interfering with it. That's the level that we could be at. And then you look at our health span now, and it's 10 times less what it used to be. It all makes sense. It's a toxification that has amplified the shrinking of the lifespan.
Yeah, and I'm going to repeat this number again, too, because I want people to really understand this. Like 1 quintillion times more EM1. Do you know what a quintillion is?
No.
That's a massive, I don't even know what that is, right? Like there's a lot of zeros there. That's a massive amount of e-smog that's hurting us, like as far as like the radiation is concerned. And that was 10 years ago. If Kurzweil's right, and if technology is compounding on itself faster than compound interest, I don't know why. Like, if you really think about this, you'd be like, I need this stuff now. I needed it yesterday.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And you look at our devices, and what they are is basically the simple way to explain it would be like if you took a record player and you etched the record, right? And you look at the record, it's got those grooves. Well, we have little gold cards that have that same kind of base frequency of what that song was like, etched into these little gold discs that are about the size of a credit card. And these two lasers hit it, and they scatter that frequency. And they scatter that frequency the same way your router does. It goes about 3,500 square feet per device, right?
Yeah.
Per cocoon.
Right.
And so what I want to do, this is like the ultimate. I want to go put a whole bunch of those in some of the grow ops. Because I'm in Denver, and we just, the multi-billion-dollar industry, and I want to go and make basically a buzz, because people will get behind that, and then they'll go, oh, that's probably really good for my health, wouldn't it be? yes, you can grow bigger bud, you can grow bigger yields, you can protect your crops, the soil lasts longer, and then people will get it because that is an industry where people are like, oh, I care about this.
Yeah,
right
they care
now,
about
I
it
care
more
about
than they
this.
care about their own bodies, right? Right.
So if I go to the weed industry, I get a bunch of smart hippies and people that are smart in business to see it. Maybe they'll come to common sense and say, wow, I should probably be sleeping next to that too, shouldn't I? Yeah, you
listen,
should.
man, if you make the weed any more powerful than it is now, like I'm just not even going to touch it, man. Like
it's insane out here.
Yeah. I can't handle it anymore, you know? So, but I get what you're saying for sure, right? Like this is a thing like that's going to get faster and faster and faster. Like people are like AI. I'm like, hey, I get AI is something to worry about, but because in my opinion, it definitely is. There's some good things about it, but just like waves, frequencies, and technologies, there's good things about it. Like there's good things, like you said, that we can do now. But the fact that it's affecting your body at such a rate, and technology is building at such a rate like we've never seen before. You look at a chart of technological build, and it's unlike anything you've ever seen, right? So this is going to be a must, or things are going to get bad, you know? So, and I feel like this, bro, there was some weird, I'm just going to say this, and this is just me saying this, not James. There's some weird stuff going down during COVID when it comes to putting these towers up, man. I seen people guarding these things. I see satellites going up all the time. And I used to work in the tier 2 tech industry for Verizon. So I literally looked at network panels, all like network structures all the time by the time they got to me. And that was in 2012. And we were smothered in this stuff, dude, when I was looking at it on the maps. So I'd be afraid to look at it right now, honestly.
How about this? Go Google search the COVID board that was going in the 5G towers. They pulled the board out and it says the word COVID-19 on the board. Why would you ever need to etch a chip? Like, unless the chip had a core function that interacted with that. And I'm going to leave it there at that.
It might have, like, because they had those chips in everybody's phones that were trying to keep like, you remember that? Like, because I used to get those notifications on my phone. Did you get vaccinated? I'm like, what? You let us know if you did so we can track you, right? I'm like, no way. Yeah. I'm not turning that on. You know,
turn them all off. You've been exposed. We were just, I don't even know where we were in Vegas for a conference. And it said we were exposed while we were there. And I'm thinking to myself, what do people do? Do people actually run somewhere and show people? So they get the vaccine and someone saves them? I don't understand. What do? You go hide, you go put your head in the sand. And that's at the end of the day, like, what are you going to do? If you really dig, and I encourage everyone here, if you really dig into what are you really going to do, you got to educate yourself, and then you got to protect yourself the best you can. And then you really need to regenerate yourself as fast as possible. And that's the only thing you can do.
Dude, this is like a must. So, and I don't want to get into the spooky stuff, okay? I mean, too much, but we should be conscious of it. But the good things that people are saying, like, I don't know. I hope people that have used it will call in here in a little bit. But the good things people are saying, the stuff that I've heard, that's like, man, I've never slept like this before, or I've had headaches that have like gone away, or when they go to the events and show the stuff, I'm hearing people leave and then they come back like freaked out because they can't believe how much their pain is gone and stuff. And you say it's not a miracle thing, but for people that have, I guess for people that they're used to popping pills, or they're used to having to do something crazy just to be able to do this stuff, when they can feel it naturally, it probably does shock them, right? Like,
oh yeah, you see a rate of change in someone. Like, perfect example, my wife rolled her ankle, and it swelled up severely and was almost black. Wasn't even purple, it was like black. And we're thinking to ourselves, do we go to the emergency room, right? And we have this kind of conundrum whenever we get hurt. And I said, you know what? Let's go home. Let's wrap it with the cloud. Let's do like 10 sessions. Let's do as many as we can over the next couple of days, and let's see what happens. And I'll tell you, watching the swelling go down in real time was the most remarkable thing to validate exactly everything that we have been working towards. And I'm like, man, I got to film this, but I am very skeptical in my own, testing and evaluations and the things I'm seeing, because I don't want to be the guy who works for the company and pushes the product and does the thing. I want to be the guy that has the natural, results just like everyone else.
Yeah.
But watching that, oh, dude, and she's walking. You would have taken her to a hospital. They would have said she got to have surgery. She'd be on some kind of crutches. And then when you're not using your body, it's not regenerating. When you immobilize the body, you stop the blood flow.
Right.
So if you stop the blood flow, then you stop the regeneration process, or at least you stifle it. And so what our device does is it keeps it going at its normal rate, plus speeds up the detoxification, right? Because if you look at what blood flow is, it's oxygen in and carbon dioxide out. When you get a bruise, that's all carbon dioxide. That's all it is. That blue buildup is carbon dioxide. And so your body's saying, hey, I can't get rid of this carbon dioxide. So it pushes it to the surface and says there's a major wound here. So if you learn how to detoxify the body rapidly, then the body is going to do what? Its natural response, which is to regenerate tissue and send the fibroblasts. And we have some videos you can look at too with the fibroblasts, that our device basically makes the fibroblast move faster. So if it moves faster, what does that mean? It means your rate of healing is what? Increasing?
Right.
Or speeding up, So I think we can't ever say that our device creates a correlation, because that's the rule, right? But what we can say is, if I can speed up your body to do its normal job, what is the result?
What? This is a dumb question, but why can't we say if it does? Like, I know you can't legally, because what is it, like the FDA or something like that? Yeah. So
I can't prescribe you something that's going to create a healing result in your body. I can't tell you what our device is going to do. Only you can have your own third-party self-regulated experience.
Regardless of the studies, right? Like, regardless
Right.
of the studies,
Yeah.
the scientific, that's so crazy, man.
It's crazy. But you know what? I respect it. And I respect that's what Paradigm does. We work really closely with the regulatory bodies, and we look at what the FDA is saying. And we don't want to be just like your father. We don't want to be another Me Too product that actually didn't create a rate of change. I'd rather see us moving slower. I'd rather see us not pushing so hard with check this out and letting people kind of have that own self-governing experience, because just like you were with Monroe Institute, you were skeptical and your consciousness state changed. Nothing else changed. Your state of consciousness, you went, I accept that now. And then things were possible. I could change someone's biology right now, but if they don't accept it, they're not going to get better faster. There's no way.
Well, that's just kind of why I like this stuff too, because they demonstrate it, right? And then when you put, it's not just like they're talking about it and selling an EMF necklace, even though they do have like a bubble, which generates more than most necklaces too, because of the technology, because of Kafka's technology, right? But with Monroe did the same thing. You put the headphones on, he goes, here's what's going to happen, right? Like, I'm going to show you this. And when you first got introduced to it, he'd put one frequency in one ear and another in another one, and he would tell you, this is what's happening to your mind. These two frequencies are syncing your mind together. And I was okay. And now I'm awake, but my body's starting to fall asleep. Like, what's going on? Because your consciousness level is like increased, right? Like you're at a higher state of awareness now. So
it's beautiful. He gets you in that state, and then he can guide you. And I think that's kind of what we are for each other. We're shepherds, right? And the salespeople that work for Centropix are shepherds for that kind of rate of evolutionary shift. And those people are brave. I would say that anyone that we work with and anyone that signs up and anyone that becomes a part of our mission is a brave human being who has said, hey, look, I'm tired of what I've seen. I just lost my uncle. She just lost her dad's best friend. We had another person that died, and it's all from the exact same thing, which I don't need to bring up. And then my realization is, well, then the people who are here and they are the ones listening on, stations like this, they kind of have a responsibility to wake up their brothers and sisters and say, hey, look, this is real. You need to not be a skeptical human being. You need to raise your state of consciousness and acceptance. And should you choose to get to that level of consciousness, then you should do something with it. You should help someone else.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well said, man. That's well said. So, look, we'll be right back. We'll open up the phone lines up. Let's see how much we're going to get into this. Guys, and you know what, like, call in too if you have, EMF sensitivity. If you have any questions about it. I mean, I don't know as much as he does about it, but it's a good time to question this. Go to fringe.fm/bioenergy. The more questions, the better, or testimonials, whatever, anything like that. Stay with us. And so this guy likes to get behind some of the coolest stuff and get behind marketing it. So I'm sure you guys are familiar with GAIA and stuff and some of the other companies he's worked with, but this one by far I think is going to be, this is huge, man. I don't look, I don't say this kind of stuff either about a lot of things. What I'm talking about right now is just as big, in my opinion, as when I first started talking about HemiSync. You guys know I didn't care about the body that much. It was all about conscious exploration, but this is the earth, I guess you could say, the not the opposite, but the mirror thing, right? For that. Yep. It all works together. But we got a caller on the phone here, looks like from 402 area code. Who are we speaking with?
Joe?
Hey. Is this Linda?
It's Dancing Dave. It's Dancing Dave's mom. That's me.
Oh, cool. This is one of my favorite people in the world. What's up, Linda?
Hi. Hey, James. Good to talk to you again, too. I love listening to you, and I'm so appreciative of what you're doing to help get the word out there. As you heard when I was on Surviving the System, these products have greatly improved my life, greatly. And I just think that everybody needs to have them. I don't know how you can't, not with what's going on in the world, not with the e-smog and the 5G, especially the 5G. I get very blunt with everybody, and I just look them in the eye and I say, you are being microwaved 24/7. Do you understand that?
They don't.
And they don't. I know. There is a documentary out there. Are you familiar with Sasha Stone?
Yes.
Yeah, he did a documentary, 5G Apocalypse, I think it's called.
Yeah.
I know you can find it on Rumble, yeah. And so I've been trying to get people to watch that to understand how really serious this is.
Well, I mean, at the rate at which we just talked about, like if that increases, and make no doubt about it, technology and capitalism are not going to slow down for anybody. Nope. So, like at that rate, imagine 10 years from now, whatever a quintillion is, I can only think like it's not going to get any easier. You know.
Here's a good visual for you, Linda. So your cell phone is in your pocket all day long, and I ran a racing team in my 20s, and we had satellite internet from Hughes. And on top of that satellite dish was a little box that said, "Do not stand in front of while in operation. This 0.25 milliwatt transmitter has been known to cause cancer." Okay.
Wow.
Let's fast forward to that being a comparison. That was a 0.25 milliwatt transmitter, which was just doing a burst transmission when a data packet was being sent. Your phone, take a wild guess how many milliwatts transmission your phone is capable of.
No
Take
clue.
a guess.
Tell me.
Oh, I don't remember the exact amount, but I know it's astronomical compared to that.
If a satellite dish, which had a huge, massive antenna and radio system and all this technology, I mean, that satellite dish was about $25,000 back in the day. It was 0.25. Your phone ranges between 2 to 3 milliwatts of transmission, and it does constant transmission because it's looking for signal. As it's bouncing between towers and as it's getting its lock-on bearings, it's always looking and it's always receiving the emails and your text messages and all your notifications. The transmission level on average doesn't ever drop below about 0.5 milliwatts of transmission constantly. So every time that you're keeping that near your body, if that satellite dish had a warning on it, imagine what the cell phone industry would actually do if they're faced with the level of scrutinization that the satellite dish industry had when it launched. But it was never done because the study stopped at 3G. If you go back and look at the actual official published studies on 3D and the human biological impact, they stopped doing them. 4G was never studied. 5G was certainly never studied. And if you look at the ratio, and everything that we do now is inferred math. Look at the ratio of causality of radio waves creating a reaction in the body at 3G, and then just multiply that by 1,000,000. 5G to 3G is about 1,000,000 times more potent. So you do the math. If it only took 5 minutes to create some kind of warming reaction, maybe it took 10 minutes to create some kind of skin resonance, and then it took, maybe 30 minutes to create some kind of actual negative blood reaction, and then you can kind of keep going and going, then times that by 1,000,000. And then tell me that, these things don't harm you. And even like the Bluetooth devices in our ears, they have an effect, and you can see it. And I'm a firm believer in that the hiding it doesn't do any good for anyone. And you have to be vocal, just like you are now, unfortunately.
I have a friend who constantly has that Bluetooth in his ear, constantly.
Yep.
And he's always complaining to me about this ringing. And I go, get rid of the Bluetooth, for God's sake, get rid of the Bluetooth.
The Bluetooth isn't as bad as the phone next to your ear. Trust me. Like jamming the phone in your ear all day is really bad, right? Like, but Bluetooth is bad for sure, but it's like the lowest one out of if you stuck the phone to your ear all the time, it causes. I think I've had bad dreams from it, actually. To be honest with you.
I live in these Apple Air Maxes, right? Because I'm on conference calls for probably 10 to 12 hours a day on heavy days. My bone structure around my ears has actually changed. You can see right here; it actually swells from here to here, and it freaks me out to the point where I won't do calls for like a whole day. So I stopped scheduling calls on Fridays, and I stopped scheduling calls on Thursdays, and I started really realizing like, I'm usually not feeling well by Friday from doing so many calls. And so now I'm kind of in this catch-22, like we were talking about earlier, Joe. Yeah. What do I do? And even when I'm wearing that bubble and I'm sitting in my cocoon and I'm laying on my mat, I'm still putting so much direct focus right on my brain that I'm making it very, very hard for my body to regenerate the effects of that. It's a challenge.
So tell me, Linda, now that you called in, like, I know I heard you before, but just because we're talking a lot of science and heavy stuff, but just like on a practical level, like how are you feeling since you've tried these products, since you've been using them? Like, how is your life enhanced?
I've got a tremendous amount of energy compared to what I had before. My biggest complaint before was that I always felt fatigued when I woke up in the morning. I never had a problem falling asleep, but it was staying asleep that I had difficulty with. And if I got jolted awake, such as an accident down the street or something where you hear the impact and it jolts you awake, and then I couldn't get back to sleep. My heart would be racing and everything else. So the first thing I noticed immediately, I actually plugged the cocoon. It was the first device I actually used before the bubble. I plugged the cocoon in and slept great that night. Still woke up some, but it was able to go back to sleep. The following night, I put the sleep well card in there and slept 7.5 hours straight, and blew me away. I was like, wow, that felt really good. And now I have learned, I will still sleep okay. If I forget to put the sleep well card in, I'll still sleep pretty good, but I wind up waking up again. I put that sleep well card in, I sleep sound all night long. Awesome. So the bubble, as I told you on my son's show, I was actually seeking out a cardiologist because I was having so many heart palpitations.
Yeah, I get those sometimes too.
And no heart palpitations since I've been wearing it.
You know what the most fascinating thing is?
Isn't that from stress, or isn't that caused from stress, or like a like some kind of weird thing?
You know what's really fascinating, and you guys are both going to love this. There's actual brain cells in the heart, and those brain cells have this ability to regulate the actual biorhythm, and we call that HRV. And what the bubble does is it runs the Schumann resonance And the Schumann resonance is like our, let's call it the core essence of where all things resonate. And when you look at Fibonacci and you look at how this perfect spiraling geometry creates these plants, and the plants have this reaction.
Yeah.
Well, in your DNA, in your cells, if you start to push that frequency, which is exactly what the bubble does, the natural bioresonance goes back into homeostasis and rhythm. So if it goes back into rhythm, what happens to your heart rate? Your heart rate goes down and back into HRV and back into a calm state, because your heart's saying, I'm in my core place where I'm supposed to be, because of that 7.93 hertz telling my body and all my cells to the core that I'm in what we would call baseline homeostasis, which is just wonderful for stress. The bubble is just, I love the bubble so much. And I constantly tell people what it is, and everyone loves it. And everyone asks me at the gym all the time. It's the best calling card I've ever been able to have in my life is that bubble. So it's remarkable.
I think what people might want to know though is, because there's stuff out there, if there's a way to explain this, and I know it gets science heavy, but is there a way to explain Kafka's patented technology and the advances of it versus what's out there, right? Like, because I know he patented this in 98, and then I guess that original patent, he advanced the technology even more, like in a superior level in 2018, and that's what I've been trying to understand is that part of it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that there's two actual systems here. We've got medical kind of backing and technological infrastructure from a guy named Gruber, and Kafka are our two major contributors. So Kafka is the cloud, and Kafka is completely based on, biological response and how do we actually synthesize molecular activity. And he was the guy who put, Beamer on the map with the blood flow patent signal. And Kafka is just remarkable. He's always been focused on, getting the cell into homeostasis and making molecular activation with us and making these things possible. But the cool thing is, we, on our path and our search, when we were developing Centropix, we said, okay, look, there's other stuff out there. And in Europe, they are big advocates for no 5G, no Wi-Fi in the classroom. People don't walk around on their phones. They're very, very conscious about that. They're very, very, very conscious, unlike humans or people here in the United States, where we just assume that everything's okay in the United States. In Europe, they question everything. It's a very, very different culture, a very, very different non-idealization of fancy technology. They'll ask you questions. And so when you go over there, you meet people like Gruber, who he spent his whole life saying, how do I actually protect that biosphere? How do I actually stop those frequencies from inhibiting the body and causing those rates of change? And when you go deeper and deeper into his work, it's all about understanding, phase waves that cancel all the waves out. And so it's like this remarkable mixture of two of the coolest people I've ever met coming together and making a group of products that synthesize so well together as a package. It's wonderful.
Yeah, because I don't, like, Maggie sent me the information about that, like some videos to watch with Kafka, and then Linda has been talking to me about this too, and it's been like, it's blowing my mind, bro. Like, I've watched the Kafka videos a few times, and then I've talked to Linda on the phone a few times about this stuff, and just hearing her like rave about it and talk, you can tell it's like changed her life, Yeah. So I'm glad you called in, Linda.
Yeah.
Well, you're very welcome. Yes.
Yeah, can I ask you a question? Do you change the cards out in your cocoon?
Yes.
Which cards do you use?
Let me. The East Smog and the Hawaiian Harmony stay in there.
Yep.
Okay, and then the next one that stays in there pretty consistently is the immune card.
Yep.
And
for good
my
reason.
animal card because I have a dog.
And how's the dog?
But every now and then, but you know what? He seems to be much happier. I've noticed that when I come home from my son's house, he tends to go and lay on the rug in front of the table where I have the cocoon sitting.
Oh,
and,
wow.
I think it just seems to me as if I noticed we would go to my son's house. He used to be perfectly content to stay there all day. And lately, after an hour or so, it's like he's looking at me saying, let's go home. And, and I don't know if that's because their dog Coyote is wearing him out because she's like a year and a half and a husky, but I just know that when he comes in, he comes and he lays in the living room right in front of the table where I have it. And then he lays there for about 15, 20 minutes, and then he gets up and he goes someplace else.
Yeah.
And he's just perfectly, he's very content right now, very, very content.
And animals, they're so electrosensitive. When a dog goes out to go to the bathroom, do you ever realize why they're sniffing around? You know what they're looking for?
It's something about the frequency coming up from the earth.
I figure they're just looking for a spot that's nothing's been peed in.
No,
that's what I'm thinking.
So some dogs, they're looking for scents. Yeah. But what they're looking for is ley lines. So dogs will never go to the bathroom on intersecting ley lines. And what's cool about that is you can learn a lot from your animal. You can actually find the best possible areas of residence. Dogs will lay in areas of the home where the lines don't cross. And we stupid humans will go put our bed on an intersecting ley line and wonder why we don't sleep. Well, guess what? In my guest room, my bed faces north. And in my room, my bed does not face north. And I sleep way better in my guest room. So we kind of counteract this kind of sensitivity and say, oh, that must be this or that must be that. But animals don't. And the coolest thing about an animal, it has no placebo. An animal will do exactly what it feels is the best possible thing for it. 100% of the time. So your dog, I would encourage you to change some of the cards and see how your dog actually reacts. But I can tell you there was dogs downstairs that would bark all the time. And then we got the cocoon and I put that animal card in and they stopped barking. And I said, that's insane. So I took the animal card out. I waited a couple of days. They started barking again. I was like, come on, this, I'm just making this up. I must be crazy. And then I literally went downstairs to talk to the people. I said, hey, you guys have dogs? They're like, yeah, we have these dogs. And, we moved this new unit and they were all freaked out. And there's all these windows and they see the people walking around. And I was like, well, what changed? They go, well, we're not really sure what changed, but the dogs just seem happier now. I think they like the apartment. I was like, that's all I needed to hear. And I just started laughing and walked away. There was a time it was insane, but they feel it for sure. Best possible thing to watch.
Well, that's interesting. That's definitely interesting. Oh, I'm excited about this actually. I mean, because next week I think like Maggie's going to let me try this stuff out. I've done the research. The more I do the research, the more like anxious I am to I want to try it. Because I think this stuff is affecting me. I work on this equipment, man, like hours and hours a day. Not only is it sedentary, right? Like I have to walk a lot, and anywhere I go, people are like, "Sit down, sit down, sit down." I don't want to sit down. Like I'm trying to level myself out all the time, man, whether it's in the mind or the body, And
you think about it, the thing that I would encourage everyone to understand about our products is you need to counteract all those things. Like I'm a big go-getter. I push really hard. Yeah. My calls start with Europe at 4:30 in the morning every day. And I have to be able to operate at this level of brain capacity on every single call. I've got about 40 plus clients. I've got a team of 45 people. Everyone's asking me questions. Keeping that cognizant function is beyond normal homeostasis. So I have to push harder. I'm on this mat all the time, bubbles on all the time, cocoons on all the time. And so you got to tell people like, look, it's not some miracle thing, but look at how I act. You brought that up earlier. Look at how I act. I could go to the gym. I could go run 5 miles. I could go do push-ups for an hour. I can go work out. I can go snowboard. And that's the thing. The quality of life needs to be recognized now as something as a measurable goal, right? What kind of quality of life you're having? So what's the benefit of us having less technology if we die younger? What's the benefit of having all these great things that we can touch and feel and sense and have all these great things if we don't enjoy them? You want to live sick with all this technology, or you could live smart with technology that actually keeps you alive longer and keeps you in a better state of consciousness and health. And I'm just all about that.
Well, here's the thing that interested me the most looking at the study work that I thought was really cool. I've been on medicine for the most part of my life with some kind of medicine. When you look at the molecular structure of how medicines work against molecules in the body, right? So not only are they replacing certain molecules, but they're affecting the compound as well. They're affecting the natural compound of the molecular structure. Versus when you put the right frequencies on this stuff, there's nothing that needs to come in and interact or mess with it or change anything to the molecular compound. It simply fixes it back to its what you call homeostasis, the place that it was supposed to be. And I'm watching this going, oh, hell, like if we really put our mind into this and we really put enough energy into this, there would be no pharmaceutical industry, I don't think. No. But I'm not a doctor, but I know what I'm looking at. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Do you know where pharmaceutical companies get their inspiration? Maybe Linda knows this.
Nature.
Do you know? Nature. Exactly. Nature.
Yes, nature.
And what do? They try and synthesize something. They go, hey, that plant, that thing did something good for the body. Instead of telling people, go out and eat that plant or go out and make this compound of natural things, or they say, we're going to take that plant. We're going to synthesize that plant back to its core molecular structure. Then we're going to patent a version of that that's maybe one or two compounds different. And then they say, hey, we've got this new thing. It's going to change your life. Well, guess what? You're dumping a frequency in your body that someone else synthesized that they then modified because they can't actually patent plants. They can't patent nature. But what they can patent is compounds inspired by nature. And then you go, I wonder what else they threw in there. I wonder what else
besides
they can do
the fillers, right? Yeah, like besides the fillers and the colors,
you have no idea.
What else is in there? Yeah,
bro, you have no idea what's in there. You have no idea what that pill does. Unless you're a scientist and you can actually break down the chemical compound and you can tell me what the molecular structure does and you can show me its reactions in the DNA, then and only then can you actually tell me what's going to happen to my body. And then you go through the negative side effects. Well, what are those side effects from? You're introducing something that's not natural in your body. That's it. The side effect is the unnatural process of putting the pill in your body. The ones that crack me up the most are the ones that say death.
Well, I mean,
how would you take that?
I'm like, even looking at this stuff, I'm thinking like, okay, well, some people are born with certain things. I get that. But this,
of course.
The way this technology works, I know that we would come up with frequency. We would come up with ways of curing. I'm just going to say this, mark my words. We'll come up with ways of curing things that have never been cured before. The more we look into this technology, we're going to come up with health things. They're not going to want us to do this, but we're going to do it regardless. Right. And then I started looking at aging. I'm not a scientist. There's some big words I was reading, but I understood it as the rate of decay when it comes to organs, when it comes to our brains, when it comes to synapses, when it comes to all kinds of things, is how our molecules are regenerating and growing and how natural they are. And the reason why we get all these diseases is because we're doing things in our lives that are screwing up the frequencies themselves that are lower in these things, right? It's not rocket science really, but there's a lot of big words in there, you know.
Do you know what chronic disease is defined as?
The chronic disease?
Chronic disease. This is where Dr. Tennant, guys, anyone listening, go dive deep into Dr. Tennant. Amazing human being. He was an ophthalmologist, dedicated his life to basically understanding all this kind of metaphysical world translated down into voltage in the body and created his own device, his own protocol, blah, blah, blah. But he said chronic disease is when the body has the inability to make new cells that work properly.
Yeah.
That's chronic disease. So you're like, oh, well, all those chronic disease titles for all these chronic this and I have chronic this. I could spend time with you and I could spend time with people who have chronic diseases and show them a evolutionary path towards life back to homeostasis that they would have never imagined. I've seen things and been a part of some miraculous moments with people that defy what I've been taught in school, and I just can't. I can't go back now. It's impossible.
This is something like, I want everybody to look at the deep information with this, right? You can go to fringe.fm/bioenergy and look at the products, but just to look at the technology itself, look up what Kafka's doing, look up what Centropix is doing. I think I'm really happy about. I don't jump on stuff, man. You guys know me. I've been doing this for a long time. I just don't jump on stuff. But I'm jumping on this just like I did. I'll say it again, like I did with HemiSync. That's how much I believe in it, right? And I haven't even tried the stuff out yet. It's just I understand like this whole frequency thing probably bigger than I understand anything in my life as far as the potential of combating the world the way it is,
Your consciousness is on a level where it's willing and able to respond to the communication protocol that can help itself regenerate without the need of any other simulation. And that's where real rapid healing becomes evident. It's remarkable.
Belinda, you sell this stuff to your clients. What's the number one thing that people say about it, you think? Like the biggest thing people say about it?
Well, all of my clients are introduced to the cloud, and every single one of them are like, wow, this is great. This feels great. And that's where I've made, and I haven't made a whole lot of sales, but that's where I've made pretty much all my sales.
On the cloud, the mat,
from introducing, right? Mat. And when they walk in, of course, they're experiencing the cocoon, and those that are very frequency sensitive definitely feel a difference. And some of them actually, like when you were talking about, like you could feel yourself humming, I think it was.
Yeah.
Some people can actually hear like a white noise, and they'll talk about how it's quieter here.
Oh, that's
cool. They said it just, everything seems quieter. So it gets their attention that way. And because I understand, like with you, that sometimes finances can be, a temporary hindrance. I'm very patient with them, but I make sure that I keep putting the information in front of them and stressing to them how important it is.
You can look at your finances too and be like, don't mean to cut you off, but I've got some pretty hefty hospital bills from just not taking care of myself. So, you know what I mean?
Well, I agree with you, and that's some of the things that I say to them is that, you can't put a price on quality of life either. No. I mean, I faced this decision myself. I wanted to point something out to you. When I first heard this, there was an instinctive internal reaction when I heard about the company. I'm signed up under Maggie, but it was actually a woman by the name of Tanya that introduced me to. So she was technically my sponsor. And I said, I want to know more about that. And I found myself very drawn to it. And prior to this, I had been telling Tambra, my daughter-in-law, for about a year and a half, I feel like there's something else I'm supposed to do. And I couldn't figure out what it was.
Yeah.
And it clicked. This is what I'm meant to do. And if you just get it in your head, okay, this has to be done, you'll find a way to make it happen. I mean, with especially with what your podcast is about, my son teaches this stuff. Mm-hmm. You've got to put that frequency out there. It's the law of attraction.
Well, I'm a sound guy for sure, man. That's what I'm all about. Like, I'm just telling you guys, like, frequency's everything. Being a ceremonial magician, when I say that, people are like, oh, they get freaked out. They don't. I use sound and frequency every single day, man. And some people think I'm crazy for living the lifestyle I live because I'm on the verge of, like, just losing everything all the time, following my heart. Like, I lived a magical life, and I can tell you that 99% of that magical life has been the frequencies that I've put out, whether it's been my voice or just from my energy or just the radio station or whatever. Like, I'm a sound dude. And to see Like this is so what you're saying, Linda, is like to me is like, hey, it's like God showing me, like, let me show you what sound is really about.
Absolutely.
Right? Because you're on the top level of the understanding of sound and frequency. Let me show you what the word really does. Right. And then I'm like looking at the science, I'm like, holy shit. It's bigger than I thought, you know. So
you're getting into the fabric of why we're even able to have this kind of experience.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm hoping it increases, man. Like, because I think what Centropix is doing and what you're doing, Linda and Maggie and James, I think what all you guys are doing is like the tip of the arrowhead to fight. It's not. I always look at things like a war because I'm an Aries, right? But I like technology. But if we're going to live in this world, we need something to balance it out, man, for sure.
Amen.
You know?
Yeah, I can't agree more because you're getting to this place of consciousness where there's a division between the people who are willing to be awake and actually take a step forward into something better, and the people who are willing to fight you for all the reasons why you shouldn't think for yourself. And that suffocation of consciousness and free will is detrimental to the human advancement of everything we could be and could be as this beautiful creation that we live in, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I got to ask you this too, James, like, so do you know, you don't have to reveal anything, but when it comes to the future, what you see in the future of this, and you're involved with several companies, including this one, are you happy about it? Because when I look out there, bro, like I see, like you guys want to see the future, go to fringe.fm/bioenergy. This is the beginning of the future of medicine and healing. I don't care. That's it. But when you look at these companies and see the stuff coming, you seem happy about it. You don't seem scared like everybody else does.
No, not at all. I think what happened with me was I had a severe injury. And when you go through a severe injury and you're in a state of incapacitation, right? I couldn't walk. Nothing made sense. I wasn't getting better. Every doctor didn't really do it for me. Nothing was anything other than surgery. And so you go through this kind of like brick wall where if you refuse to accept what you're being told, you're naturally going to go down a path of a higher state of consciousness. And as you get to that higher state of consciousness, you only then surround yourself with people in that higher state of consciousness. And so like I was telling you earlier, I could bring so many people to your network that are in this place. And once you're surrounded with that room of people, and like I have people like Linda in my life, I have thousands of them. With Beamer, I had 44,000. You go on stage in a conference with 2,000-3,000 people who are all in that state of consciousness. It is extremely powerful. And I'm telling your listeners right now, the people who are listening, you guys are going to go through a transformation in the next 3 to 5 years. And if COVID didn't wake you up, dude, if COVID didn't wake you up, then nothing's going to wake you up. That was the biggest fracture to every single system of every single comfort zone of anything that had ever existed. And if you're not paying more attention to your health and your wellness now, then it won't matter what's coming. But the people who are the pioneers, and those people do have an awakening process that they're going to go through. And that awakening, I can encourage everyone, is to have acceptance, listen to what is in front of you, try and absorb it, try it for yourself, see if you can get to that state of consciousness where you're going to say, my body is a sacred temple. My body can do everything that it needs to do. I'm going to help it do its job. And there is no magic or any kind of external system. These are not magical mats. It is just your body doing what it's supposed to do. Yeah,
but imagine you see people pounding energy drinks and stuff all the time. I'm guilty of it, bro. I'm guilty of it.
Me too.
But imagine like if you're a fitness person and you're
Program
plateauing, right? Yeah, I see you're laying on that thing, right?
Program 3, instant boost.
You're plateauing and you're like, is this it? Is this my peak or whatever?
Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe you need a little frequency boost just to see, you know?
You got to see what's coming too, man. There's so many devices coming, and especially even with us, The founders are working on stuff that will blow your mind. I mean,
but isn't it sad though that it's sad? I'll say the one thing that's sad: Einstein and Tesla, right? We know what they went through, and they already said that the frequency of medicine, the future of everything, right, is frequency. Yep. That's the future of everything is frequency. And even now in 2023, when I thought we'd have flying cars by now, right? Because I grew up in the 80s, bro. Like I thought we'd have Back to the Future cars. We still got people that aren't accepting the fact that even with the information, the studies that are right in front of them, that aren't accepting the fact that sound and frequency is changing the game. It's healing things. It's doing stuff. It's changing consciousness, you know.
What's the bigger problem? Is the bigger problem the lack of technology or a lack of consciousness to understand the technology?
It's not the technology. It's consciousness for sure. We have all the technology in the world to do it, you know.
Look what you're doing. Your voice and this dedicated focus for what you're doing is the way that companies like Centropix move forward. You have to get to that level of acceptance. So it's not considered metaphysics. It's just considered biophysics. It's just considered the norm. We accept that, therefore it is. And when you see what's happened from COVID, I think it's the best possible thing for our industry, because you watch people go through something, take a thing, then still have it, and then still die. Doesn't get any more detrimental than that. Have a thing, here's what's going to cure you, and then they still die. That couldn't have been any more blatant of here's a normal system that is evolving in a paradigm that is detrimental to the progressing kind of field of human health. And what are you going to do about that? I mean, it's right there in front of you. You got to wake up.
Take another booster.
You got to wake up.
Listen, I'm not afraid to say it. This is the Fringe FM. We can say what we want. Take another booster. Keep doing it. Give yourself AIDS. Why don't you do that? Like, just keep screwing up your whole immune system. Like, I'm not saying that to make fun of you. I'm saying it because it angers me that you bought into that when they don't even have the answers. And they're all, even the people that are shooting these things and telling people everything they're being told to say, are backed by a group of crazy capitalist mad scientists that don't care about anything but discovering the mysteries of human DNA and how they can mess with it, right? And like, it's insane that people don't know that right now. It's insane.
Hurting the population, less people.
And when you see a frequency, like take a molecule and bring it back to its normal state, and these people are jabbing you with booster after booster, not trying to figure out how do we get the molecules to go back to where they're supposed to. Like, something ain't right, man.
Yeah, and they do it without question. You know, people will ridicule our products and our technologies until they're blue in the face and refuse to take, you talk about the financial. Well, how expensive is death? How expensive is being sick? My uncle spent the last 4 months of his life in ICU. He bankrupted his entire estate because he took all the things, did all the things the right way, and got the continued thing and got stuck in the paradigm and then died. And he was younger than one of my best friends that I ski with all the time, and what's the cost of that? I find that argument completely irrelevant. And everyone's got a credit card and everyone can find out how to get a hold of this stuff if you really wanted to take the next step. But if you really want to continue to live in the state that you're in, then by all means, you can turn this off, and you can kind of ignore people like Linda and people that are trying to make a difference in your life. And unfortunately, those people wouldn't be listening anyways because they aren't awake enough in their consciousness.
And speaking of which, Linda, I'm sorry I got on a rant there. Is there anything else you'd like to add to this before we let you go or let you off the phone line? I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. But just for fun, it just so happened my dog came out and laid in front of the cocoon. I took a picture and forwarded it to you, Joe.
Oh, okay.
So you can see I was not making it up.
That's
he
so cool.
He loves to lay in front of it.
Oh, he's like right in front of it, man. All sprawled out and stretched out, man. That's cool.
Yes, he is. You are going to love the cloud when Maggie introduces you to that. You're just going to love it. I had a friend of the family that came to help me do some yard cleanups, and he worked very hard. He had been at David and Tambra's in the morning and then came here, so he really worked very, very hard. And before I took him out to dinner, I said, come here, I want you to try something. So I put him on, and I just put him on P4 and then P2.
Yep.
And he got up and he was like, wow. He goes, my back doesn't hurt. And he came from Arkansas too, Joe.
Awesome.
My back doesn't hurt. My shoulder. He goes, my shoulder was hurt. My shoulder feels better. Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah. Well,
so you're going to love it, Joe.
There's real studies on this, by the way. There's real studies on, how they measure heart arrhythmias, how they measure stress levels in the body. Like that, there's real tests on this. There's real results, and this is what blows my mind because that you see the results, but you can't say it legally yet. They haven't given you permission yet. And then until they give you permission and say it's okay, regardless of the scientific evidence, right? Like I get stupid frustrated about this, man. I'm not Abraham Lincoln. I'm not patient about it,
Me too. And honestly too, you guys can look at some of this stuff if you want to take a deeper dive on the website that you guys linked. We also have another website, which I'll share with you, Joe, and it's just for information research and deep dives. Wonderful kind of resource for people.
All right. Okay. And Linda, thanks for calling in too. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. James, it was good talking to you again.
Yes, same. Thank you so much
for what you're doing.
You too.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, Linda's so cool. You could tell this stuff like really changed because I didn't even talk to her that much because I knew David from the show, and when she came on the show, I was like, I got to talk to her more, and she's stoked about it, and so is Maggie. Maggie's stoked about it. Like I've never heard people talk about something like this so much, other than I'm just gonna be honest with you. When I started talking about HemiSync, funny how things that are focused around frequencies tend to like wake people up, right? It's like I don't know. It's kind of the irony of it is funny, to be honest.
Yeah. Your state of consciousness in sharing the consciousness is an elevated state. So it makes sense.
Well, you look at, and you also, to get really esoteric about this, let's just get out there because we are on the fringe. When you look at ancient history and all the documentaries and all the stuff, because I think there's going to be an even bigger technology that's going to come down the line. That when we mix what you guys are doing with biogeometry and things like feng shui, and you can imagine, let's just say an Eden or a paradise, even in a world that has technology where everybody understands fractals, sacred geometry, the power of frequencies, they can see it happening, the quantum levels, everything on the earth and how it's all functioning, and go, oh, we've been slinging pills and dope and fear and stress because we didn't let this go. Do
you know why it's not a rapid degeneration of those systems?
No idea.
So think about this. If there suddenly was this group of people that reached a state of consciousness that then said, we don't want to participate, you wouldn't know because they just wouldn't participate. Some of the most fascinating human beings I've ever interacted with have no participation in humanity anymore. I'm talking people that live on a level where I'm telling you right now, I've seen stuff that would blow your mind. I've seen things that defy logical, conscious, this is reality. And it's because those people have cut themselves off so far that you would wish they were a beacon in the society so they could inspire and stimulate people further, but they get to the point where they run out of that gas to push forward.
What's the point? Yeah, they get to
what's the point?
I've done that on this show before too, but I mean, if you ask the people that are closest to me, I'm like, I can't do it. I can't talk about it another night. I can't. And there's always the people that are close to you are like, yeah, you can. Yes, you can.
You got this.
You got to. Yeah. Yeah. No, but I know what you're talking about too, because I talk to a lot of people that do like, they try to get out totally away from the system, living off grid, things like that. And that stuff is great. It's wonderful. A lot of that stuff is just country, if you ask me, because I was born country, but some of it is actually very, intuitive. Like there's still stuff my daddy and grandpa didn't know, like that you could learn now. Right.
Yeah.
But
and
they didn't know anything about frequencies and biotechnology or any of that stuff though.
Yeah. And what was their job? They were doing their thing to sustain themselves. But I'm talking about what's your job to help the human race. That's a bigger job, Right. And I think, you run from that and you can kind of say, I don't want to be a part of this and how evil and blah, 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 or you could do something about it. You're actively doing something about it. And that's
exactly what I thought, dude. When they did the COVID thing and everybody's all of a sudden living off grid became massive, right? Because people, and I know what, let's say there's an adversary. Let's say there's a 9-level tech boss comic book level, and he sees all these people scatter into the woods to live off grid.
Yep.
You know what he's saying? Run, rabbit, run. Right? He's like, perfect. Yeah, like
he's happy.
I'll get you in a little while, but right now you're not my main focus. So scary off.
Guess what? You're the ones that are conscious. You're the ones that could actually make change. You're the ones that could ruffle the feathers of the mainstream sheep. And you're the ones running for the hills. And I'll tell you, I did that. I'll tell you, in 2012, I was having visions of the world ending over and over again, to the point where I walked away from my company. I had another marketing company then, and all my clients and my sports cars and my penthouse and all the cool shit. And I went and lived in a cabin in the woods. And I lived in Fairplay, Colorado. I moved out to Colorado because I saw this vision of where I should go and had this amazing experience. And I could go into that another time if you're interested. But I went and lived on top of the mountain. I literally did. I lived at 11,635 feet. And I sat in my cabin in the woods alone for about 6 months, just completely decompressing, just completely detaching and realizing that I was failing at what I was good at, which was I have the ability to inspire.
Your gift that you were given. You just took away your light. Dude, yes.
Exactly.
That's
exactly right. Yeah. And that's that power, right? So you think to yourself, well, shit, anyone could go live in the woods. And the people I met up there were all in the same place. They all said, I've had enough. And I was thinking to myself, but I have this drive that I need to go do a thing with my life. And that's when I started Paradigm. I said, okay, I'm not going to, you can see on my list here, I've marketed Patron tequila and Ducati motorcycles and Zumba fitness and these big, Paul Mitchell and these big kind of multi-billion-dollar brands.
Sure.
And I said, you know what? I'm going to take everything I learned from that life and apply it towards something that had some kind of mission focused and
something your soul is calling
change.
You to.
Yeah, bro. And it changed everything. So you're on that path, dude. You're walking that life, and you're going to meet more and more and more people the higher your consciousness gets. And I think your network here, people, they're on that path with you. And we have a job here to do. We can't just sit around and let all this shit kill us. You just can't.
Well, you seem like a guy that's been through a lot of the same things I have on a, let's say maybe an emotional, psychological level, right? I would have loved to have had the sports cars and everything though, but man, I'll get there one of these days because I want that experience, right? But it's
a mix.
Yeah. I've had money before, but not that kind of money. But I'm going to try because I just want to experience it, to be honest with you.
And what you can do with it is really cool. Yeah. When you're really conscious, you have money.
It's a whole different ball game.
It's a whole different thing. And then you're like, wow, we started a venture capital group of just conscious Christian men. And what we can do in that venture capital group is tremendous. So you have the first part, which is who you are as a person. What are you doing in your path? What's that path doing to unfold the future, development of other people's paths, and how can you make it better?
So
money's a byproduct.
This show is called Lighting the Void, and for the biggest reason I call it that is because I feel like I'm inspired. I'm here to inspire people to, it's called knock some packs, right? It's something that I've learned in the mysteries where you don't hide your light. Whatever your soul is asking you to help the world with, regardless if it's practical or if it makes you $1 million or I don't know, whatever. Like whatever your soul is calling you to do, there's no hiding from it. And this is what Carl Jung talked about. There is nothing you can do to hide from it, and it will pull you down to your knees until you're ready to do it, right? And I feel like that's what, like hearing that story, and we got to do another show sometime so you can tell me about it, but that happened to you, didn't it? I mean,
totally.
Yeah.
Completely. Full surrender. Gotta face this, gotta take it on, gotta move forward and do what you love. And I'll tell you that flow state, and I think you can remember Monroe talks about that flow state. Mm-hmm. He gets you into that place where if you no longer restrict your own consciousness to continuously develop and evolve. So again, I say I'm a big fan of psilocybin because I think for a lot of people, they have to have a trigger. This trigger has to hit them. They have to have a reaction. The reaction creates an alchemical response. The alchemical response creates a cognitive detoxification, right? Unblockage. Then they're faced with the thing that they've been hiding. And then when people actually go through that, which is basically just forgiveness, they transform. And it's shown that if we get really deep, and I'll bring my buddy Wes in here, the highest states of consciousness are only achieved through forgiveness states. And then you look at the work of Jesus and you go, wow, he was really into getting people to forgive and be forgiven. And then you're like, wow, there's something really magical there that is an underlying kind of core understanding of how to raise consciousness systemically through a large group of people from an unconscious place. Look at those times. You could, I'm not asking everyone to go suddenly become Christian.
No, but there's a fundamental principle behind
there.
That. Yeah. We did I gave it to the members, but I do path workings where I do audio guided path workings, and it was called the Path of Samek, which is the story of Christ. That whole story is about you coming into your own first, regardless of what the world thinks, right? Regardless of what the closest people to you think. And in that path working, there's people threatening you and telling you, don't change. Come back. You better get your butt back here the way you were, or we're never going to talk to you again. Blah, 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 whatever. Every threat and every fearful thing you can imagine for you not to come into your own, like a hornet's nest trying to get you to like stop in your tracks, right?
Totally.
And then you go through the death and then you do the forgiveness thing. And then you know, it's life, death, resurrection. It's been the whole teachings of this whole thing, right? So
think about the man you are after that moment versus the man you are before that moment. Yeah. And if you keep doing that over and over again, the man that you become is so transformative based on the man that you started out, that every man that you come in contact with after that is the only thing that you can do is help them progress. That is the only thing. And like I said, when people focus on money, for success, that should never be the focus. Money is a byproduct. Right. If you look at the society, look at the construct, the structure of how we survive, smart people understand how to make money, but they do it in a very toxic way 99% of the time. Conscious businesses now are probably going to be more and more prevalent, and these kinds of community focused and organizational structure focused where everyone wins. And these things, I'm not saying they're going to take over the normal capitalistic kind of world, but they're going to become more and more real, these co-ops. And you're seeing that because as consciousness changes and as society develops a greater understanding of itself and its core worth of what you value, and if social media has taught us anything, it's that people want to feel that value. They want to have that intrinsic belief that they're a good person and they're doing good for someone else. Well, it's one thing to sit on your phone and text people stuff. It's another thing to have a two-way interaction of pure conscious transmission that creates a rate of change in your physiology that makes you say, after this moment, I want to be a better person. That is absolutely fundamentally the main transmissional focus of what it means to be a human being for another human being. I think it's the whole reason why we're here. And that was a deep one, but
no, dude, we got to have you back on here so we can talk a little bit more esoteric stuff. You know, I wanted to talk to you mainly tonight about, you know, these products, you know, Kafka's work, Centropix, and I think it's just as big as HemiSync. I do. In my mind,
totally.
it's just as big. If you guys want to go check it out, go to fringe.fm/bioenergy. There's more information there to be had if you dig, right, and just look into this. And man, I want to thank you for coming on. It was a really, really cool conversation. We got to do it
Thank you, brother. I loved it.
Yeah, for
Honored.
sure. We got to do it again. You guys, go check out the website or the link, fringe.fm/bioenergy. I'll be leaving links in the show notes for all you guys. You guys have a great night. Sweet dreams.